How's everybody doing today, guys? The mower I have here today is a mower I've used for a few other videos on YouTube. I got this one, I think, from my scrap guy last fall for about, he charged me $10 for mowers, and it did run, and I cleaned it all up, cleaned up the carburetor, put fresh fuel, spark plug, blade, everything, to get it ready to sell. And then during my testing of the mower, it would run and run perfectly for about 2 minutes, and then it would sputter, and usually it would die out like it was starving for fuel. So the things I've tried with this thing are new spark plug, 3 different carburetors including a brand new one, 3 different fuel tanks including a brand new one that I also had with a brand new fuel line, just to see if the fuel line was collapsing on itself. It definitely has fresh fuel in it, and I've also changed the ignition coil. The one that was in it was pretty much brand new, but I put a new replacement one, not a new one, but a different replacement one, and spark is definitely not the issue. Sometimes if they run for a few minutes and then heat up, the ignition coil heats up and it stops producing spark, but that's not the problem. I've tried it with the fuel tank cap off and different fuel caps to see if the venting of the cap was the problem, and it is not the problem. So I'm basically stumped with this machine, but it's a really nice looking machine, self-propel with a brand new bag pretty much, and I don't want to give up on this one. So what I have done was I found a mower that has pretty much exactly the same engine, but it has a rotted out deck, and I got this off of Facebook Marketplace for 20 bucks. So the problem is with it, the guy broke the starter rope on it. So before I swap out these engines, I'm going to make sure that this guy actually runs. So I'm going to take you through my process for that first, and then if that's successful, then we'll put this engine on this deck, and hopefully that's going to solve our issues. But guys, if you have any other, I checked the flywheel key, I checked the valve clearance, everything is to spec there. So I've basically run out of ideas on this machine with this motor. So if you have any other ideas, go ahead, post them down in the comments. That would be appreciated. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is check to see if it has any fuel. Yeah, it looks like it does have a little bit of fuel. Doesn't mean it'll run with that fuel. Maybe the carburetor's gummed up, who knows. He said it ran last year. Let's see what we got for oil. And there's definitely some oil in it, but definitely would need an oil change. There's enough to test anyways. Spark plug. He had the spark plug boot off, but we'll throw the spark plug boot back on. And now, it doesn't have a pull rope, so how are we going to get around that? So this top cover should have 2 screws, Phillips screws, holding it on. The guy said he lost the screws for it. Now, starter recoil is under here, the rope goes in there. So I could easily enough replace this starter recoil with the one off the other machine. And that's what I'll do. But for now, for testing, and if you don't have a spare one, guys, I'll show you what I do to be able to pull over the engine without actually having the starter rope. So you still have to take off the tank. It's got 1, 2, 3, 5/16. Then the oil filler tube has a 5/16 as well. And the tank as well on the bottom side has a 3/8 bolt here. So that's where I'm going to do next. I'll take the tank off. And then I got a little 5/16 for the oil dipstick. So take that out, you kind of pull it up, you rotate it 90 degrees, and then you push it back down into the hole. So there's that. Oh, thought I smelled fuel. So next got to take this starter recoil cover off. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 3/8, 4, and they're two different sizes. So the longer ones go in the front and the smaller ones go in the back. So just pull that guy off, and there's the old rope, or what's left of it. And that might even be enough to get this thing fired up. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this length of rope that I just took off here. I'm going to take this end with the nut. Now, this starter cup has a little notch, a little groove. So what I'm going to do is put that on there, and then I'm going to wrap this rope around in a clockwise fashion, like so, as many wraps as I can, and hopefully I have enough rope to be able to pull on it hard enough to get this thing to spin over enough to see if it will actually fire. Alright, so I just put a tie on the brake cable up there, and that just releases this brake over here, but also releases the ground as well, so that the coil is not grounded out. So I think what I'll do now is see if the prime works, the primer. Actually, that's hard to tell without taking this cover off. The air filter. Take that off and take a look at that air filter too. Oh, look at that. Blow that out. So now what I'm doing, and it's really dark, but right in this area there's a tube in the throat of the carburetor called an emulsion tube, and I'm pushing the primer and seeing if there's fuel coming out of that tube. And I don't see anything. It's hard to tell though, but that's okay if it doesn't prime. In fact, I do see a little bit of gas there. Maybe it was coming out, I just couldn't see it because it's dark. I'm going to try and pull it over a couple times just using my little rope here, and see if it will even sputter. If it doesn't, I'll maybe put some starting fluid in there. Promising. It did start and run, not for long, because I think it just used all the starter fluid. So the carb is probably kind of gummed up a little bit. So what I'll do next is I'll take this fuel tank off, and then I'll start prepping this engine to take it out, and I'll prep the other mower and get that engine taken out, and then I'll just swap them over, and I'll just use the best of the parts for from each of the engines. Alright, so I'm gonna work at this brake cable here next. There's two tabs that I'm pushing together with these needle nose pliers, and it can be a pain in the butt. Sometimes they come out easy, so you push those tabs. Oh, this one came out nice and easy. Okay, and you just remove the Z-bend from here. Alright, so just have a big flathead screwdriver. Take these. This one's a bolt with a flathead on it. That's how I know. I know I've worked on these things before, trying to get these belts off. And these are not the proper screws that go in here. I think they're 5/16 bolts. But then this whole bracket comes up and slides out to allow me to get the belt off. Alright, so next thing I'll do is take off the blade. Anytime you've got the mower flipped up here, guys, you always want to flip it carburetor side up. And the other thing is please, safety first. Take off the spark plug wire when you're working under here. Last thing you want to have is inadvertently spin this blade and have the thing start up on you. So this is just a 9/16 bolt. Blade comes right off. Now there's 1, 2, 3 1/2-inch bolts that are the only thing that's holding this mower onto the deck. So what I like to do is I put some penetrating lubricant on the back side, and on the bolts on the top side, I should say, and I'll probably try and spin these off initially with a socket and a ratchet, because I have seen these so rusted on there that if I use my impact right off the hop there, I've snapped these bolts in the block. So I'm just going to try and crack them. Alright, these ones actually look pretty. This one anyways is not seized in there. That one's good. Alright, 3 for 3, we got lucky on this one. So once I know they're not seized, then I'll switch to my impact and make it easier. There is a shroud here, a cover, guys, that I told you about, that kind of covers up the belt that goes across this pulley. That plastic shroud seems to be missing on this mower. It does exist on the other mower. So, and it would attach to this bracket right here. So I take the bottom one out first, and then I'll leave one of the top ones into the last. And that's just so that it holds it in place here, and it will fall forward on the other side. So I can either hold it here, it's not that heavy, or I can hold it from the top side so I don't get this thing fall on the floor and break any plastics or anything. So there you go, there's that bracket that came off as well. So now the engine is loose. Oh, this blade adapter came off nicely. And I could just set that engine down. It only weighs maybe 20-30 pounds, something like that. And now I got an engine clear of the deck. So, guys, for the process for the other one, I'm going to do pretty much exactly the same thing as the last one, so I'm not going to show you that, but I will come back when I have both the engines off, and I'm putting the new engine on this new deck. Alright guys, so what I've got going on now, this is the new deck, the newer deck, with the engine that I hope is going to be running well. And I've just got it on there, and all of these bolts started. Like I said, 1/2-inch bolts. Snugging each one down. I'll come back after, do one kind of final tightening. And there's the bracket. Here's the blade adapter. It's got the pulley with the belt, and then that plastic cover I was telling you about. So, put the first things first. I'll put a little anti-seize on this shaft before I put that blade adapter back on. So I got a nice liberal amount of anti-seize on there. Now this blade adapter has got a key, and on the shaft there's a key way. So those two have to line up. You put it back together. And that's all she wrote. This cover has got a couple screws, and I believe these were 3/8. Yep, 3/8 bolts. Line it up first. There. Impact might be losing juice. Alright, now blade. I'm going to put this blade back on that I have already sharpened. You'll probably not be able to see this, but it says grass side. Actually, that's just some sort of a serial number or something like that. So grass side. That means that this side actually has to point down towards the grass. The actual blade side that does the cutting, the angular part, always points to the top of the mower. So if you've ever put a new blade on and afterwards you're like, oh man, this thing is not cutting very well at all. It's a brand new blade, what's going on? Well, it's most likely because you might have the blade on upside down. Now on these ones that have sort of a curve or tapered edges, it's not, you can't do it. It's not even possible. It won't fit on the blade adapter. But there are some blades that are flat, and those flat blades will allow you to install it upside down. So that's just one thing to watch out for. Alright, and my spark plug is out, so alright, that's good. Okay, now back on the top side, I'll rehook up my belt for the self-propel. Put on my belt guide. Now, off the other one I was showing you that there's a couple of flathead screws, but these are a little 1/4-inch bolts that are actually supposed to be in there. Alright, so that's that. And then the other mower was also missing this top cover. So this guy just slips on like so. And then there's a 5/16 bolt on the top side. Okay, so that's that. Alright everybody, so I got everything back together now with the new engine on. I cleaned out the carburetor. I haven't put the air cleaner on just yet, but you can run it without that. I put some fresh gas in here. I have not changed the oil just yet, but I want to wait to see if this thing will run, hopefully. After all, I've been dealing with this thing. I hope this thing runs. So, because there's no air filter, I'm going to have to use some starting fluid. Here we go. Alright guys, so I'm super happy about this. Like I say, this is a pretty decent mower. Probably can get about, expecting to get 150 bucks once I clean it up. And it wasn't worth anything the way it was running. So now I have a spare engine for parts. I'll probably just tear that down and then give the rest to my scrap guy, as well as that crappy deck. And I'll save the parts off of that I can. So I'll just put the cover back on this guy, put the air filter cover and the air filter on, and this one will be ready to go. So thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. If I helped you out at all, if you learned something, if you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That definitely really helps me out. Alright guys, till the next project, take care.